Welcome back to UK Flix, where real stories meet the moments that change lives forever. Tonight's story begins like so many others. Quietly, no cameras, no announcements, no warning. A teenage girl slips out without telling her family. A secret plan, a private smile, a late-night car ride toward a glowing five-star hotel. But some nights don't end the way they begin. In a matter of seconds, laughter turns into panic. Yes, you heard that right. Jen Arnold and Bill Klein's daughter, Zoey Klein. Without informing her family, Zoey Klein was on her way to a five-star hotel with her secret boyfriend Zach for a private date. On the way, their car met with an accident, and Zoey Klein was seriously injured. Zoey Klein has been admitted to the hospital and is receiving medical care. She is fighting death. What really happened that night? And will she survive the injuries that doctors say are life-threatening? Tonight, we tell the story no one was prepared to hear. And it begins now. Zoey Klein didn't grow up in the shadows. From a very young age, she grew up under soft studio lights, gentle cameras, and the warm gaze of millions of viewers who watched her life unfold on television. To the public, Zoey was bright, expressive, and full of life. A child whose laughter often filled rooms, and whose smile felt genuine, unforced, and contagious. But behind that familiar smile was a young girl quietly growing into her own world. As Zoey entered her teenage years, something shifted. Not suddenly, but naturally. She began wanting privacy, independence, a sense of control over her own story. Like many teenagers, she started keeping certain thoughts to herself, certain feelings, certain names. Her parents, Jen and Bill, were deeply protective. Not out of control, but out of love. They had always tried to balance family life, medical realities, and public exposure with stability. But even the closest families don't see everything. And Zoey knew that. At school, she wasn't just the girl from TV. She was a teenager navigating friendships, emotions, and curiosity. Especially curiosity about love. It was there that she met Zach. Quiet, polite, attentive in ways that felt different. He listened. He noticed. And slowly, without headlines or announcements, something formed. What began as harmless conversations turned into something deeper. Something Zoey felt wasn't ready to be shared yet. She told herself it was just temporary secrecy. Just until she figured things out. Just until the right moment. But secrecy has weight. The more she kept this part of her life hidden, the heavier it became. And on one particular evening, Zoey made a choice. Not reckless in her mind, but hopeful. A private date? A five-star hotel? Just a few hours away from expectations, rules, and the world that always watched her. She didn't leave a note. She didn't send a message. She believed she'd be back before anyone noticed. What Zoey didn't know, what no one could have known, was that this quiet decision would become the most dangerous night of her life. And before midnight arrived, everything would fall apart. Secrets rarely begin as lies. Most of the time, they begin as silence. For Zoey, it started with something small. A name she didn't mention at dinner, a message she deleted instead of replying out loud, a smile she quickly hid when footsteps came closer. At first, it didn't feel wrong. It felt private, personal, something that belonged only to her. Zach wasn't someone her parents disapproved of. They simply didn't know he existed. He was the kind of boy who stayed in the background. Not loud, not flashy, not desperate for attention. That was part of what made Zoey feel safe with him. With Zach, she wasn't Jen and Bill's daughter. She wasn't someone recognized in public or whispered about online. She was just Zoey. And that mattered more than she realized. Their conversations were simple at first. School, music, dreams. The kind of talks that stretched late into the night without either person noticing the time. Zach listened when Zoey talked about pressure, about being watched, about expectations she didn't always know how to meet. He never pushed, never demanded explanations. He just stayed. As weeks passed, silence became habit. Zoey convinced herself she was protecting her family from unnecessary worry. She told herself that once she understood her feelings better, she would tell them everything. But every day she waited made it harder. Secrets don't stay light. They grow heavier the longer you carry them alone. There were moments she almost spoke up. Moments when she watched her parents laugh together and thought they'd understand. Moments when she felt guilty for hiding something that made her happy. But fear always won. Fear of disappointment. Fear of questions she wasn't ready to answer. Fear that something so fragile would be taken away before it had the chance to grow. Zach suggested meeting somewhere private. Just once. No friends, no school hallways, no familiar eyes. A place where they could talk freely without worrying about being seen. A 5-star hotel sounded excessive, even silly. But to Zoey, it felt distant from her normal life, far removed from routines and expectations. Just a few hours, just one night. Nothing risky, she told herself. She didn't think of it as rebellion. She thought of it as independence. What Zoey didn't understand yet was that secrets have consequences. Not because they are wrong, but because they leave no room for help when things go wrong. And as she climbed into the car that night, her phone silent, her heart racing with nervous excitement, she had no idea that the secret she carried was about to be exposed in the most devastating way possible. Not by words, but by fate. The plan was never meant to be complicated. Just a few hours away from home. A quiet place where no one would recognize her. A pause button on a life that always seemed to be moving too fast. Zoey stood in front of her mirror longer than usual that evening. Not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because she was nervous. Her reflection showed a girl balanced between childhood and adulthood, excitement and fear, confidence and doubt. She chose her clothes carefully, nothing dramatic, nothing suspicious, just enough to feel like herself. Zach texted that he was nearby. Her heart jumped. Zoey slipped out quietly, believing the house was still. No one noticed the door open. No one asked where she was going. And for a brief moment, the silence felt like freedom rather than risk. The hotel Zach had chosen wasn't random. It was distant enough from familiar places, glowing with warm lights and anonymity. A place where people came and went without questions. To Zoey, it felt like neutral ground. Somewhere untouched by expectations or history. Inside the car, the atmosphere was gentle. Music played softly. Zach talked about trivial things. Traffic, a movie he wanted to see, a restaurant nearby. He was trying to keep things light, sensing Zoey's nerves. She laughed more than usual. But beneath that laughter was tension. Zoey kept checking her phone, not for messages, but for the time. She calculated how long they could stay, how quickly she could return, how easy it would be to pretend the night never happened. She told herself she was in control. The city lights blurred past as they drove, and Zoey leaned back against the seat, watching reflections dance across the windshield. She imagined walking into the hotel lobby unnoticed, sitting across from Zach, talking without whispering, just being young, just being normal. Neither of them talked about consequences. Neither of them imagined danger. The road ahead looked smooth. Traffic was light. Everything felt calm. Almost too calm. Zoey didn't know that this calm was fragile. One sharp curve. One unexpected moment. One mistake. The hotel was still minutes away when the atmosphere changed. A sudden noise. Headlights from the opposite direction. A split-second reaction that came too late. Zoey's hand reached instinctively toward the dashboard. Zach's voice rose in panic. Tires screeched against asphalt as control slipped away. In that instant, the hotel, the secrecy, the careful planning. None of it mattered anymore. There was no time to scream. No time to brace. Just impact. Metal crashed violently against metal. Glass shattered. The world spun in chaos, sound collapsing into unbearable noise before everything went terrifyingly still. And in the darkness that followed, Zoey Klein lay injured, Unaware that her secret night had turned into a fight for her life, the five-star hotel would never see her. But the hospital lights soon would. For a few seconds after the crash, there was no pain, only silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, ringing silence that follows something violent. The music had stopped, the headlights flickered weakly, smoke curled into the air, carrying the sharp smell of burned rubber and metal. Zoey didn't know where she was. Her ears rang so loudly it felt like the world was underwater. She tried to move, but her body didn't respond the way she expected. Her right side felt numb, her chest burned with every shallow breath. When she tried to speak, no sound came out. Zach was yelling her name. His voice sounded distant, panicked, breaking through the fog in fragments. He kept asking if she could hear him, kept telling her to stay awake. But Zoey's vision blurred in and out, darkness pulling at the edges of her consciousness. A sharp pain surged through her head, and suddenly everything felt wrong. Blood trickled down the side of her face. Her legs were trapped, pinned in ways she couldn't understand. The seatbelt cut painfully into her shoulder, the pressure unbearable. She tried to lift her hand. It barely moved. Fear rushed in all at once. Not the nervous fear she'd felt earlier. This was raw, primal terror, the kind that strips everything else away. She wanted her mom. She wanted her dad. She wanted to go home. Zach struggled to open his door, his hands shaking as he fumbled for his phone. He dialed emergency services with trembling fingers, his voice breaking as he tried to explain what had happened, where they were, how badly Zoey was hurt. "Please, hurry," he repeated. "She's not okay. She's not waking up." Zoey heard sirens in the distance. Faint at first, then growing louder. Red and blue lights reflected off broken glass, flashing across her fading vision. Strangers surrounded the car, shouting instructions she couldn't fully process. Hands reached in carefully. Someone spoke calmly, telling her not to move. A flashlight shone into her eyes. Words like severe trauma and possible internal injuries floated through the air. As paramedics worked quickly to free her from the wreckage, Zoey slipped in and out of consciousness. Each time she drifted back, the pain felt sharper. Each time she faded again, the world felt farther away. The drive that was supposed to lead to a quiet hotel room had instead delivered her into chaos. And as the ambulance door slammed shut and the vehicle sped toward the hospital, one terrifying truth became clear. Zoey Klein wasn't just injured. She was fighting to stay alive. The ambulance raced through the night, sirens cutting sharply through the darkness like a warning the world couldn't ignore. Inside, everything moved fast, too fast. Paramedics worked with practiced urgency, their voices calm but firm as they checked Zoey's vitals again and again. Oxygen was placed over her face. Monitors beeped steadily, each sound a fragile reassurance that she was still here. Zoey drifted in and out of awareness. When her eyes opened, bright white lights blinded her. When they closed again, memories flashed. Her parents' faces, laughter at home, moments she never imagined might feel so far away. She tried to hold on to those images, afraid that if she let go, she wouldn't find her way back. Her breathing became shallow, her pulse weak. "Stay with us, Zoey," someone said gently, squeezing her hand. "You're doing great. Just stay awake." But staying awake felt impossible. The pain spread deeper now, radiating through her chest and abdomen. Something inside felt wrong. Dangerously wrong. Her body trembled despite the blankets placed over her. Every bump in the road sent shockwaves through her fragile frame. Outside the ambulance, traffic pulled aside. Strangers stared as flashing lights passed by, unaware that a young life was hanging by a thread just a few feet away. Zach followed behind in another vehicle, his phone clenched tightly in his hand. His hands were still shaking. Guilt crushed him with every mile. This was supposed to be safe. This was supposed to be private. He never imagined it would end like this. At the hospital entrance, doors flew open. Doctors and nurses rushed forward as Zoey was wheeled inside, her body strapped to the stretcher, wires and tubes already attached. Medical terms filled the air. Head trauma, internal bleeding, possible spinal injury. Each word felt heavier than the last. They moved her straight into emergency care. A nurse tried calling her parents, dialing numbers repeatedly. No answer. Again. No answer. The silence on the other end felt unbearable. Inside the trauma room, Zoey's condition worsened. Her heart rate dropped suddenly. Alarms sounded. Doctors moved faster, voices sharper now, tension filling the room. Someone called for additional support. Someone else prepared medication. Zoey's body fought, but barely. As machines took over what her strength could no longer do, the weight of the night finally settled. The secret was no longer hidden. The silence was no longer safe. And somewhere not far away, two parents were about to receive the call that would shatter their world forever. The emergency room doors closed behind Zoey, sealing her inside a world of harsh lights, rapid footsteps, and relentless urgency. Doctors surrounded her bed, their faces serious, movements precise. Every second mattered now. Her clothes were carefully cut away. Scans were ordered immediately. Blood was drawn. IV lines were placed. The room filled with the sharp scent of antiseptic and the constant rhythm of machines working to keep her alive. Zoey's body told a frightening story. Internal bleeding. Severe head trauma. Possible damage to her lungs. Each diagnosis layered more fear onto an already fragile situation. She slipped further from consciousness, her eyelids fluttering weakly as voices faded into background noise. The pain was no longer sharp. It was distant, muffled, as if her body was slowly disconnecting from the world around it. Doctors made a decision quickly. She needed surgery. There was no time to wait, no time to debate. Her injuries were life-threatening, and delaying could cost her everything. Consent forms were prepared, but her parents were still unreachable. Hospital protocol allowed emergency intervention, because without it, Zoey might not survive the night. As she was wheeled toward the operating room, a nurse leaned close and spoke softly, hoping her words might reach Zoey somewhere deep inside. "You're safe now. We're taking care of you." But safety felt fragile. In surgery, time blurred. Surgeons worked with intense focus, controlling bleeding, stabilizing damaged areas, doing everything possible to give her body a fighting chance. Hours passed like minutes. The outcome remained uncertain. When the surgery finally ended, Zoey was transferred to the intensive care unit. The ICU was quieter. Eerily so. Machines hummed steadily. A ventilator helped her breathe. Tubes and monitors surrounded her small frame, each one a reminder of how close she was to the edge. Doctors spoke in low voices outside the room. "She's critical. We've done what we can for now. The next 24 hours are crucial." No one could promise anything more. At last, her parents were reached. The nurse's voice on the phone was careful, controlled. But the words were devastating. There had been an accident. Zoey was in the hospital. Her condition was serious. They needed to come immediately. Inside the ICU, Zoey lay still, unaware of the storm gathering outside her room. Her heart continued to beat, slowly, steadily, defying the odds for now. But the battle was far from over. And as the night deepened, one truth echoed through the hospital halls. Zoey Klein was alive, but her life was hanging by a thread. The phone rang when the house was quiet. Not the casual buzz of a message or a reminder, but the sharp, insistent ring that immediately sets the heart racing. Jen answered first, her voice calm out of habit, unaware that the next few seconds would divide her life into before and after. The nurse spoke slowly, carefully, as if choosing the wrong word might cause the world to collapse completely. There had been an accident. Zoey was in the hospital. Her condition was critical. Jen didn't remember dropping the phone, only the sound it made when it hit the floor. Bill caught her before she fell, confusion flashing across his face as he listened to the fragments she managed to say out loud. "Zoey, accident, hospital, now." The drive to the hospital felt endless. Every red light felt cruel. Every second felt stolen. Bill gripped the steering wheel tightly, his jaw clenched, saying nothing. Because there were no words strong enough to hold what he was feeling. Jen stared straight ahead, her hands shaking uncontrollably as 1,000 thoughts collided in her mind. Where was she going? Who was she with? Why didn't I know? But fear drowned out every question. At the hospital, they were rushed through hallways that felt unfamiliar and cold. The smell of antiseptic burned in the air. A doctor met them outside the ICU, his expression serious. Not hopeless, but far from reassuring. "She's alive," he said first. Jen clung to those 2 words like oxygen. Then came the rest. Severe injuries, emergency surgery, complications, machines helping her breathe. The next 24 hours would determine everything. Jen broke down, not quietly, not gracefully. The kind of sobs that come from deep inside when a parent realizes they can't protect their child from everything. Bill wrapped his arms around her, his own eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. Not yet. When they were finally allowed into the ICU, the sight of Zoey nearly brought them to their knees. She looked so small, so still. Wires covered her body. Machines blinked and hummed softly. A ventilator rose and fell rhythmically, doing the work her body couldn't manage on its own. Jen reached for her daughter's hand, afraid and desperate, whispering her name over and over. "I'm here," she said through tears. "Mommy's here." Bill stood close, silent, his heart breaking with every beep of the monitor. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the cameras, not the secrets, not the unanswered questions. Only this one unbearable truth remained. Their daughter was fighting for her life. The ICU had its own sense of time. Slow, heavy, and unforgiving. Jen never let go of Zoey's hand. She watched every rise and fall of her daughter's chest, every flicker of the monitors, as if her attention alone could keep her alive. Bill stood nearby, his arms crossed tightly, his eyes fixed on the machines that now dictated their child's fate. It was a nurse who gently broke the silence. "We need to ask a few questions," she said softly. Where had Zoey been going? Who was with her? Did she have any medical complaints earlier that day? The questions felt like knives. Jen hesitated. "She was home," she said, her voice unsure even to her own ears. "I thought she was home." The nurse exchanged a glance with the doctor. Carefully, they explained that Zoey had been found in a car with a young man. Shaken, injured, and blaming himself repeatedly. His name was Zach. That was when the truth finally surfaced. A secret relationship, a private date, a plan Zoey never shared. Jen's face drained of color. Bill closed his eyes, pain and guilt crashing over him at once. They had tried to give Zoey space, tried to respect her growing independence, but now, every quiet moment, every missed question, every assumption felt like a mistake they could never undo. Zach was brought in briefly. Not to the ICU, but to a quiet room nearby. He looked terrified, broken. His hands shook as he spoke, his voice cracking as he apologized again and again. "I never meant for this to happen," he said. "I swear, I would give anything to take it back." Jen listened without anger, only devastation, because blame didn't matter anymore. Nothing did except whether Zoey would open her eyes again. Hours passed. Doctors returned with updates that were cautious at best. Zoey's brain swelling was being monitored closely. Her lungs were fragile, her body was exhausted. There were no guarantees. "Right now," the doctor said gently, "we wait." Waiting felt unbearable. Jen whispered stories into Zoey's ear. Memories from childhood, inside jokes, reminders of home. Bill spoke too, telling her how proud he was, how strong she had always been, how much she was loved. But beneath their words was fear. Fear that Zoey might never hear them. Fear that the last conversation they'd had was ordinary, unfinished. Fear that secrets had stolen time they could never get back. As night settled over the hospital, hope flickered weakly but stubbornly. Zoey's heart still beat. Her body still fought. But with every passing hour, one question echoed louder than all the others. How much strength did she have left? The chairs outside the ICU were cold and uncomfortable, but no one moved. Jen sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring at the closed doors as if they might open simply because she willed them to. Bill paced slowly back and forth, stopping every few steps to glance at the digital clock on the wall. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt endless. This was the part no one prepares you for. Not the sirens, not the surgery, but the waiting. Waiting meant thinking, and thinking hurt. Jen replayed every recent memory in her mind. The last breakfast they shared, the casual good night that felt so ordinary at the time. Had Zoey seemed distant, quieter? Was there a moment she missed? A chance to ask one more question, to listen a little longer? Guilt wrapped itself tightly around her chest. Bill felt it too, though he carried it differently. He told himself he should have known, should have asked more, should have noticed the signs that their daughter was growing up faster than they realized. For the first time, he wondered if giving her space had also meant losing sight of her world. Across the hall, Zach sat alone. No one told him to leave, no one invited him closer. He existed in that painful in-between space. Close enough to care deeply, too far away to belong. His face was pale, his eyes red from crying. He no longer tried to hide. He hadn't stopped blaming himself for a single second. If I hadn't suggested the hotel, if I had driven slower, if I had taken a different road. But if couldn't change anything now. A doctor finally approached, his expression serious but controlled. Everyone stood at once, hearts racing. "She's stable," he said, "but still critical." Stable didn't mean safe. Critical didn't mean hopeless. It meant the fight wasn't over. Jen was allowed back into the room briefly. She brushed Zoey's hair gently, careful not to disturb the tubes and wires. "We're all here," she whispered. "You're not alone. You don't have to be brave anymore." Bill stood beside her, his hand resting on Zoey's arm, grounding himself in the simple fact that she was still warm, still here. Outside, the night stretched on, indifferent to their pain. Inside the ICU, machines continued their steady rhythm, a fragile heartbeat echoing through the silence. And as dawn slowly approached, one truth held them together through the fear, the guilt, and the regret. As long as Zoey was breathing, they would keep believing. Morning arrived quietly, as if the world outside the hospital had no idea what had unfolded overnight. Sunlight filtered through narrow windows, touching the sterile floors and pale walls with a softness that felt almost cruel. Inside the ICU, Zoey remained motionless, her body exhausted, her fight ongoing, her future uncertain. But something had changed. The doctor returned with an update that carried a fragile shift in tone. The swelling in Zoey's brain had stopped increasing. Her vital signs, though still weak, had stabilized through the night. She was not out of danger, not even close. But she had survived the most critical hours. Jen pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, tears flowing freely now, not from fear alone, but from relief she didn't dare fully trust. Bill exhaled deeply, a breath he felt he'd been holding since the phone rang the night before. Zoey was still here. Inside the room, her parents spoke to her softly, as if she could hear every word. They talked about home, about the dog waiting for her, about the future. Carefully, gently, without promises they couldn't guarantee. "We'll figure everything out," Jen whispered, "together." The secret that once separated them no longer mattered. There was no anger, no lectures, only gratitude that they still had a chance. A chance to listen, to understand, to grow alongside their daughter instead of ahead of her. Zach was told Zoey might need weeks, maybe months, of recovery if she survived the next stages. He didn't ask to see her. He knew his place. Before leaving, he asked only one thing. "Please," he said quietly, "tell her I'm sorry, and that I care." As the hospital settled into a new rhythm, the reality of what happened began to sink in. Life would not return to what it was before. Zoey would carry scars. Some visible, some hidden. Her parents would too. But there was hope. Hope built not on certainty, but on presence. On second chances. On the fragile miracle of another heartbeat. Zoey's story was no longer just about a secret night or a tragic accident. It was about survival, about family, about how quickly everything can change, and how love remains when nothing else does. And as machines hummed quietly beside her bed, one truth stood above all others. Zoey Klein was still fighting. And this family, forever changed, would fight with her. Was this accident just a tragic mistake? Or a turning point that saved a family from drifting apart? How many secrets do young people carry, believing they are protecting the ones they love? And how often do parents realize too late that silence can be just as dangerous as rebellion? If Zoey had spoken up, if one decision had been different, would this night have ended another way? And as she now faces a long road to recovery, one final question remains. When life gives you a second chance, will you live differently than before? This is UK Flix, where real stories remind us how fragile, powerful, and precious life truly is. Thank you for watching. More update. The Little Couple. Zoey Klein goes live from Red Sox game. Super popular Zoey Klein gets lots of encouragement from fans. And Zoey Klein takes over mom, Jen Arnold's live stream. Zoey and Will Klein enjoy cousin time in Boston. I will explain everything. A lot of people who like The Little Couple still think of Zoey Klein as the little girl from the canceled TLC show. These days, though, she is regularly on her mom's YouTube channel. She and her mom, Jen Arnold, were at a stadium on Saturday for a webcast. During her live Instagram session, Zoey Klein shared some real-life moments and told her fans that the family was out for the day. It was evident that everyone was having a great time at the stadium. The Miami Marlins were facing the Boston Red Sox. It's clear which club they backed because they currently live in Boston. Will Klein's sister inquired if people could hear her a lot during her live stream because the sound was often unclear. But she didn't have to worry. A lot of them said they could. They also couldn't help but notice her new fashionable glasses. When TLC viewers told Zoey how much they liked her new glasses, she seemed quite happy. She also seems to like attempting to persuade her relatives to stay still and look at the camera. One fan said to her, "Hi Zoey, it seems like you and your family are having a blast at the game. I love you all. Go Red Sox." Here are a couple more responses from the comments area on Instagram. "You are really cute, Zoey. You've changed so much. Your glasses are really lovely. You have such a unique spirit. Thanks for letting me know. Oh, Zoey, you are a breath of fresh air from Tri-Cities, Washington. Hi, Zoey, I'm from Texas, but I grew up in New York. Have a great day with your family. Love your spectacles. Hey, Mom, Dad, and Will. Hey there, Zoey. You are such a nice young lady now. It's very nice to see you." Fans first met Zoey on The Little Couple when she was 2 years old and had been adopted from India. She started to like ballet as she got older, and she loved dancing in Bollywood style. She also likes to read a nice book to unwind when it's freezing outside. But her first love is riding horses, and she takes lessons all the time. She rides a gigantic horse that looks even bigger because she is so small. Will, her brother, is still one of her favorite people to hang out with. He's getting older too. He is much taller than his mom now that his sister is 13. Are you happy to know that Zoey is still quite active on social media? Do you miss seeing the family on TV? Super popular Zoey Klein gets lots of encouragement from fans. Fans of The Little Couple miss watching Zoey Klein and her brother Will on TLC, but Jen Arnold, the 12-year-old's mom, does keep them up to date. Fans gave her a lot of support this week, and it looks like she's still very popular. When TLC canceled the show, viewers were distraught. At first, they thought Jen Arnold and Billy Klein had chosen not to go. But afterward, Zoey got on her mom's camera and said she was upset that she wasn't on TV anymore. Jen told her that it was up to the TLC bosses at the time. Zoey Klein may not be back on TLC, but maybe one day she will launch her own TV show and become a YouTube star. the little couple alum, is too little to have her own YouTube channel right now, but her mom uploads her videos on her own channel. Jen Arnold posted a screenshot on Instagram on Friday of Zoey informing her YouTube viewers on rabbits. This article has a video that you may watch further down. Her mom informed TLC followers that she hasn't been on YouTube in a while, and maybe that's because she has trouble coming up with ideas for videos. The little couple matriarch wrote this about Zoey Klein. Zoey wanted to say hi and ask her fans what videos she should make next for her YouTube collection. Many people wrote in the comments to support Zoey. Maybe one day she will find the proper balance of content and become a youthful influencer. There were definitely a lot of ideas for the cute kid. These are some of them. I love the rabbits. I adore doing crafts myself. I don't know if you like to do other crafts other than painting. Or maybe you could sew and make some clothes for bunnies. Hey Zoey, rabbits are very cute and adorable. That would be a great movie about how to take care of and clean up after your babies. I enjoy your video. My dad farmed rabbits for 30 years. I would love to watch her cooking program vids. She cooks and bakes. Zoey's Kitchen. No rules, no recipes. It would be great if you could take us around your neighborhood and show us some Christmas lights or other interesting Christmas things. I'd love to see the kids if they enjoyed a skate. What do you think of all the ideas that were sent in for Zoey Klein to think about for YouTube videos? Do you want her to become a young influencer someday? Zoey Klein takes over mom, Jen Arnold's live stream. You may know Zoey Klein as the little girl from The Little Couple Dot. She took over her mom, Jen Arnold's live stream on social media this week. The admirers adored seeing her, and they were shocked at how quickly she was growing up. Fans last saw Zoey and her brother Will Klein on TLC in 2019. She was only 6 or 7 when the movie was made in 2018. She is now 13 years old, which is only 7 months younger than Blake Busby from Outdaughtered. She is also using social media more. When Jen Arnold's Instagram broadcast started on Sunday, Zoey was in charge. She began off like a pro by saying hello to everyone who logged in and responding to some of them who said hello. She was astonished to learn that one of them was from Norway. Fans could hear her mom teaching her more about how to talk to people in the background. Zoey wanted to know what time it was in Europe. After that, she added, "Hi from Tennessee. We have people from Tennessee." Then she talked about her dad, Bill Klein, and her brother Will Dot. She said, "My brother is doing great, and so is my dad." As she got into it, the young reality TV star talked about how she needs ideas for the videos she makes on YouTube. Jen allows her utilize a playlist area on the channel to show off a little bit of her life, in case you didn't know. Then she told a fan that she will be starting 7th grade at school soon. Jen Arnold would sometimes give guidance from behind the scenes. It looks like she's really interested in Zoey's internet life. That's not a bad thing. You might remember that Will got in trouble when he made his own TikTok account. Someone who liked Bill Klein and Jen Arnold told Zoey Klein, "Zoey, oh my gosh, I remember when you brought her home. They grow up so quickly." Others also remembered the little girl who had to get used to living in the US with her new parents. Zoey's parents have given her the ideal childhood. She comes from an orphanage in India. Here are some more things fans have said. "You kids are making me feel so elderly. You are a lovely person, Zoey. She has become a really kind and humble young lady. Zoey, you did a great job on your first live. You performed a great job. So beautiful and so nice. It's great to see you all grown up and with such a nice personality. You're just as gorgeous on the inside as you are on the appearance. Have a great Sunday." A couple additional enthusiasts showed up with ideas for YouTube videos. A lot of them wanted a cooking part. Maybe Jen Arnold and she will get together soon. What do you think about Zoey Klein taking over her mom's live stream? Are you hoping that she will one day start her own cookery channel? Zoey and Will Klein enjoy cousin time in Boston. Will and Zoey Klein, the kids from The Little Couple, went to Boston. Fans of TLC were worried that they wouldn't like the city very well because they were from Florida. You can't always get what you want in life, but it looked like the youngsters made the best of it. In fact, kids rapidly got adjusted to the winter snow and liked building snow angels. But now that it's summer, they had some fun in the sun with their relatives. Will and Zoey had to deal with some new things in their lives, but they seemed to handle them well. It was very terrible that they lost their dog Rocky, but they received new pets to care for. Life is life. and young people can't stay idle for very long. Time really flies by for these two kids. People who watch TLC still think of little Will and even smaller Zoey, although in actual life they have grown a lot. This year, Will actually turned 13 in New York. Zoey, who stars in The Little Couple, is a lot of fun. She wants the show to come back to TLC, and fans would love that too. Last year, she had fans laugh so hard they cried when she assumed her mom gave her a kid's toilet instead of a toy robot. TLC needs more funny people like Zoey in their lives, but for now, they can only pray for a miracle. Dr. Jen provided some pictures this week that showed Will standing much taller than his sister and some of his cousins. At the same time, Zoey seemed thrilled to be with her cousins. Dr. Jen wrote in her caption, "Catching up with cousins is the best." The kids had a great time. It looked like she caught up with her younger brother's family because she later posted a picture of him from when he was younger. Fans of The Little Couple talked about their summer in Boston in the comments. Some of them said, "I love all these amazing images of your family. Have a great trip in Boston. How old is Will? I recall the train with the hot chocolate. God, this is the best thing about you right now. What a blessing to have a lovely family in a lovely area." The kids are getting so big. Sadly, it looks like TLC won't be bringing back The Little Couple. When Jen talked about it recently, it sounded like the network made the decision to terminate the show. There might not be many more years of little folks to observe. There are whispers that little people, big world might expire shortly. 7 Little Johnstons can't go on forever though, because all the youngsters are now adults. No more today. What are you thinking about this gossip today? Let us know in the comments and stay tuned by subscribing to our channel to get more updates like this. Thank you.